True leaders are altruistic people who always think of their country's progress rather than the growth of their own bank accounts. 700 North Korean commandos have just landed in Burkina Faso, and they're not here on peacekeeping missions. They're here to protect Traoré. But why would one of the world's most secretive regimes risk everything to defend an African president? That's what we're about to uncover. On a continent where international military engagement typically bears the NATO insignia or the French tricolor, the sight of North Korean soldiers setting foot on African soil was, to say the least, surreal, and yet it happened. The government of Burkina Faso confirmed that 700 elite North Korean commandos have been deployed on its territory. Fully equipped, these forces did not arrive as observers, advisors, or humanitarian agents. They came as active combat troops integrated into a security operation meant to safeguard President Ibrahim Traoré, shore up his grip on power, and stabilize the state after a series of coup attempts and assassination plots. The world has grown accustomed to Russia's involvement in African affairs, especially since Wagner-linked forces began replacing French troops in Mali and the Central African Republic. But North Korea's direct deployment was unprecedented. Pyongyang did not deny it. State-aligned media in both Burkina Faso and North Korea confirmed the mission. According to Burkinabe authorities, it has three main objectives: shield Traoré and key transitional government figures from internal and external threats, defend critical infrastructure, military bases, airports, government buildings, gold refineries, and communication hubs, and train local security forces in North Korea's decades-honed tactics, from guerrilla warfare and close protection to surveillance, infiltration, coup prevention, and counterintelligence. This operation was far from improvised. After weeks of discreet diplomatic and military exchanges, joint security drills had already taken place, facilities were prepared, and senior Burkinabe officers were briefed long before the public knew. It wasn't a reactive measure, it was a premeditated plan. What triggered it behind closed doors? Military sources in Ouagadougou point to a sharp surge in threats against Traoré. In the past 6 months alone, Burkina Faso's intelligence services, backed by Russia, uncovered 2 major coup plots, intercepted encrypted communications between foreign agents and high-ranking officers, and thwarted an armed attempt to seize a regional command post. The message was unmistakable. Someone powerful wanted Traoré removed, and each failed attempt only emboldened the conspirators. After the latest coup plot was foiled, Burkina Faso quietly sought the assistance of its newest ally. Russia was already present, but the country needed a second layer of protection, one capable of operating in the shadows, training elite guard units, and handling situations where traditional diplomacy fell short. That was when North Korea stepped in. Pyongyang offered not only troops, but a complete security package, encrypted communications systems, counter-surveillance tools, and field-tested doctrines designed to shield leaders under threat. While the world tends to view North Korea through the lens of missile tests and nuclear brinkmanship, the regime also maintains one of the most rigid domestic security architectures in the world. And now, part of that architecture is being transplanted to Burkina Faso. The commandos are stationed in undisclosed zones near the capital and in the north, regions most vulnerable to insurgent attacks and internal destabilization efforts. They work hand-in-hand with Burkina Faso's Presidential Guard, integrating their tactics with local expertise and training trusted units for rapid response missions, loyalty verification, and facility containment. The stakes are enormous. This is the first known deployment of North Korean combat troops in Africa in decades, and it comes at a time when the traditional Western security apparatus is being pushed out. France has been ordered to withdraw. U.S. military presence is shrinking, and ECOWAS, once seen as the guardian of West African order, has lost credibility with its own members. Into that vacuum have stepped Russia and now North Korea. Unlike Western powers, which operate with high-profile press conferences and flashy democracy and development banners, North Korea arrived in silence, swiftly and without apologies. Perhaps that low-profile approach explains why they were welcomed. There were no lectures, no transition roadmaps, just soldiers, unwavering loyalty, and the means to stop a bullet before it's fired. Yet this move raises profound questions. Why would an isolated, sanctioned state risk international sanctions and global criticism to back a transitional regime in Africa? What does Pyongyang hope to gain? And how does this fit into the broader shift of Africa turning away from the West? When North Korean boots hit Burkinabe soil, the first question was obvious: why? It wasn't for the headlines. North Korea doesn't care about Western media. And it wasn't for a peacekeeping image or charity. The real answer is far more calculated and perilous. It's about tactical opportunity, survival, and power projection. For decades, Pyongyang's military strategy has been shaped by theory, simulations, and national-level exercises, not by real combat experience abroad. Burkina Faso offers a rare testing ground, an active conflict zone outside Asia where the battlefield is unpredictable, insurgents move swiftly, coups are plotted in secrecy, and urban warfare blends with jungle terrain. In short, it's the perfect laboratory. By embedding its elite forces in Burkina Faso, North Korea gains real-time data on its unconventional warfare tactics, surveillance systems performance, and special operations protocols under pressure, knowledge that directly informs its own defense posture. But this deployment isn't just about technical training, it's an ideological alignment. Pyongyang sees in Traoré a leader who embodies the traits it admires: anti-imperialist resolve, military self-sufficiency, and resistance to Western control. Traoré isn't begging the IMF, attending democracy summits in Brussels, or handing over intelligence to Washington or Paris. He's expelling foreign troops, defying ECOWAS, and refusing to be a puppet of Western interests. Such a figure is rare in today's global South, making him precisely the kind of partner North Korea wants. Supporting Traoré sends a message: we stand with those who stand alone. It's both an ideological and strategic alliance, because as the West retreats in Africa, Pyongyang senses an opportunity to establish long-term influence in a region from which it was once excluded. Influence translates into trade, access to Africa's immense reserves of gold, uranium, rare minerals, and agricultural products. Diplomatic cables suggest Burkina Faso and North Korea have quietly discussed arms and technology exchanges using barter systems that bypass SWIFT and Western banking controls. In other words, they're building a new channel that doesn't run through Washington, Brussels, or the World Bank. This aligns with Pyongyang's emerging Southern opening foreign policy doctrine. Breaking Western dependencies in Africa is far more promising than challenging them in Asia. The continent's post-colonial order is unraveling in real time, creating fertile ground for a new global presence. Burkina Faso is just the beginning. In 2023, North Korea discreetly restored diplomatic ties with Guinea-Bissau and the Central African Republic. Its state media praised Mali and Niger for rejecting foreign interference, and its UN diplomats engaged with non-aligned blocs to offer low-cost security systems and mutual defense frameworks. Thus, when 700 soldiers appeared in Ouagadougou, it was part of a broader, multi-phase plan to embed North Korea in Africa's future, supporting regimes that refuse to kowtow and, in return, reaping something even more precious than raw materials: global legitimacy. Each African government that welcomes North Korean troops chips away at the narrative of Pyongyang's isolation. Each grateful handshake between foreign general and North Korean instructor sends a signal to non-aligned nations. You don't need the West to survive or prevail. It's soft power delivered in heavy boots, yet perhaps North Korea's greatest prize is an unmonitored operating environment. Burkina Faso, having broken with France and ECOWAS, has become a de facto free zone, territory where Pyongyang can deploy military units without US drone surveillance or fear of Western sanctions. In a world watched by American satellites, Burkina Faso offers darkness, a space where training, intelligence sharing, and tactical evolution can proceed unseen. In return, Traoré gains what every leader fears losing: survival. He now has a second line of defense. Anyone who wishes to remove him must contend not with a lone Burkinabe captain, but with an alliance that does not blink, apologize, or require a UN mandate to act. Yes, North Korean commandos guard palace gates, but their mission is far deeper. They're helping rebuild a national defense architecture designed to withstand infiltration, subversion, and betrayal. This presence is not an endpoint, but a starting line. A foreign alliance alone cannot secure Traoré against threats both without and within. Protection is not synonymous with power, and survival means little if you haven't transformed the machinery that once left you exposed. That transformation is well underway in Burkina Faso. The arrival of North Korean forces has triggered an unprecedented overhaul of the military and intelligence sectors. Traoré is not merely patching holes, he's redesigning the entire blueprint. He has identified past failures: a fragmented military, divided loyalties, foreign-dependent command chains, intelligence services that leaked more than they detected, and he's forging a new structure grounded in internal loyalty, strategic autonomy, and permanent resilience. The transformation began quietly. Key officials in sensitive positions were replaced, some retired, others reassigned, through surgical purges of weak links, identified via loyalty assessments and counterintelligence diagnostics carried out with North Korean support. The aim: ensure no one close to the presidency is secretly beholden to foreign interests. Next came the Presidential Guard's reconditioning, not only for personal protection, but also in state emergency lockdown protocols, encrypted field communications, and hidden dissident identification. This training surpasses conventional drills. It's modeled on North Korea's own leadership protection units, which operate under layers of secrecy, ideological immersion, and absolute discipline. Then, Burkina Faso's internal intelligence apparatus was restructured. Once treated as an arm of foreign embassies, reports filtered, censored, or relayed by third parties, it is now an autonomous surveillance and alert network designed to defend the state against sabotage and internal coups. A senior official speaking anonymously summed it up. Before, we watched for others. Now, we watch for ourselves. The new doctrine emphasizes deep loyalty verification, local infiltration, continuous monitoring, and preventive disruption of subversive plots. Agents are trained not just as soldiers, but as analysts and saboteurs, learning to dismantle threats before a single shot is fired. This overhaul extends beyond the capital. In strategically vital provinces, those most exposed to insurgent activity or paramilitary influence, parallel security chains are being installed, direct lines between the presidency and field commanders, bypassing bureaucratic delays once exploited by foreign actors to stall or manipulate military responses. This dual-channel system, one official, one clandestine, is inspired by the North Korean model, where official channels exist, but real power rests in unwavering personal loyalty networks. Traoré isn't copying Kim Jong-un. He's adopting what works, fusing it with Pan-African resistance spirit, and applying it surgically to a state that once relied on foreign security playbooks. This is not tyranny, it's defensive innovation born of years of betrayal. Since these reforms, infiltration attempts have plummeted, multiple internal threats were neutralized before acting, and the military's morale, once fractured by conflicting loyalties, has solidified around a clear chain of command loyal to Burkina Faso, not Brussels or Paris. This doctrine is now spreading discreetly within ECOWAS. Joint meetings have been held with Mali and Niger, both facing similar internal vulnerabilities, to share restructuring tactics. The goal is not to clone North Korea, but to extract lessons on self-sufficiency and state security, adapting them to the African context. Ultimately, the objective is not to become more like Pyongyang, but to become what Africa has never been allowed to be: sovereign, secure, and immune to puppet string governance. Traoré knows threats have not vanished, coups don't always wear uniforms, and sabotage doesn't always come armed. But now he's building a system that not only responds to threats, but anticipates and eliminates them. And that changes everything. With North Korea and Russia actively protecting African leadership, a new power bloc is emerging that could reshape the global balance. When a state survives repeated assassination attempts, dismantles coup plots, expels Western troops, and rebuilds its intelligence apparatus with the help of sanctioned nations, more than an internal reform is at play. Burkina Faso is no longer merely defending itself. It's becoming the epicenter of a global power realignment, and the shockwaves are rattling the old order. The deep military and security restructuring driven by Traoré with North Korean assistance and Russian special forces protection has done more than safeguard a leader. It has launched a new model of alliance building in Africa, a model that operates outside the Western axis, rejects old dependency structures, and offers a viable alternative for nations tired of being lectured, plundered, and left vulnerable. This is where the geopolitical consequences begin. North Korea and Russia are now actively defending a government in the Sahel, not with diplomats, but with elite troops, encrypted technology, and military doctrine. A new axis is forming, and it's strategic, expansive, and poses a fundamental challenge to the post-colonial Western architecture that has dominated Africa for decades. This emerging axis isn't about ideology, but about resistance and substitution. Countries like Burkina Faso aren't just resisting Western interference. They're replacing Western infrastructure, intelligence networks, military command, diplomatic protocols, and even trade systems. This axis is based on mutual benefit, not moral superiority. Russia gains strategic access, diplomatic loyalty, and gold-based trade relations. North Korea gains field testing, global relevance, and a friendly platform to deepen its influence in the global south. And Burkina Faso gains what the West has never truly offered: unconditional support with no strings attached. This shift isn't confined to Burkina Faso. Mali and Niger, both ECOWAS members, are already adopting similar strategies. In Mali, joint security programs with Russian forces are merging with North Korean-inspired cyber monitoring techniques. In Niger, the government has opened barter channels for rare minerals, fully bypassing Western financial systems. These actions are not merely short-term reactions, but coordinated moves. ECOWAS is transforming from a defensive bloc into a foundation for a new geopolitical order. Across the continent, from Guinea to Chad to Sudan and other transitioning states, leaders are asking new questions. What if we don't need the UN, the IMF? What if we can protect ourselves together? The West is panicking, not out of fear of coups, but out of fear of irrelevance. If Burkina Faso's model spreads, building internal stability in partnership with Eastern powers rather than Western patrons, the entire Western foreign policy model in Africa collapses. No more proxy control, no more conditional aid, no more regime change diplomacy under the guise of democracy support. Instead, a continent long divided by European-drawn borders is reconnecting through a new political identity founded on autonomy, protection, and shared challenge. And this is not just an African story. This emerging bloc is quietly linking to movements in Asia and Latin America. Countries like Iran, Venezuela, and parts of Southeast Asia are watching and seeing possibilities. A world no longer defined by Washington's approval, no longer constrained by EU alliances, no longer regulated by institutions serving the few at the expense of the many. What Burkina Faso is building, with North Korean and Russian help, is a new language of power. We don't need Western blessing to survive. We can survive without them, prosper without them, and if necessary, resist to the end. That language is already spoken across Africa, and the West doesn't know how to respond. Because for the first time, it's neither called upon to translate nor invited to intervene. It's been left behind. That's why these 700 North Korean commandos matter, not for their uniforms or their weapons, but for what they represent: the end of Western monopoly on African security and the birth of a new order, forged in fire, tested in silence, and now raised with purpose. Burkina Faso is no longer a case study, it's the prototype. Will the West react out of jealousy or fear? What should we expect next? Share your thoughts in the comments. Will Traoré hold his ground, or will pressure force him to relent? For more videos like this, subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned.